Hi, Alice here. Equinox Gardener, 5 steps for a successful garden. What is an equinox gardener and how can you have a successful garden now? When you're gardening during the last days of summer into the first few days of fall, that's what I call equinox gardener. The fall equinox period is when the summer days are starting to shorten and the nighttime, the darkness, is starting to lengthen. The actual time of the fall equinox varies from year to year, and it's usually on the 2nd of September. When you're gardening during this period, you're transitioning from the last hurrah of summer and plants growing up and out to plants starting to shift their energy and their survival to roots. This is what is occurring now when the days are balanced and on the equinox itself, the daytime and the nighttime hours are pretty much equal. You'll learn the 5 steps to follow during this transitional time for successful gardening and getting your plants ready for the fall season. Watch for additional gardening tips and plant information cards to add to your gardening files. Step number 1, plant now. Any last wildflowers that bloom into the fall. This is what I call the last hurrah of summer planting. Here's what I'm planting. Narrow-leaf sunflower, that's this one, and black-eyed Susan. Found a good spot here, and I'm just going to pull back the mulch and put in my plants, and I'm going to plant them maybe 12 inches apart, and while I'm doing it, I'm going to be weeding and thinning out as I go. And I always wear a hat in the garden to protect my skin. I get mosquito bites on the head, and I want to protect from sunburn. So my first hole is here, and the soil line of the pot at the level of the soil. This is a 4-inch pot. The plants have grown a lot in the pot and are pretty root bound. I'm going to try to loosen up these roots and see what I can do without tearing them. I will use my hand pick just on this side here just to break it up a little bit. I've inspected the roots and prepared them, and now the plant is going in. I'm going to use my fingers to press down on the soil to remove the air pockets. I want to be sure that when I water that the water goes evenly. So there is my first black-eyed Susan. Here's where the second plant goes, and we'll see how this looks. More roots than the first one. I'm removing some of the bottom roots, and then I'll use my pick to gently break up the mass of entwined roots along the side. This way the plant can put out new roots and thrive in its new area. And now it's time to water the plants in. That's an important step. You don't want to wait till the end of a huge planting to water everything if you can help it. Now I have to decide where in the garden do I want to put these sunflowers. I think there's an area up by my coreopsis towards the front of the garden bed. I can sit on my porch with my morning coffee and my morning pages and look out and see them blooming. It's time to check the roots and get these sunflowers in the ground. I always tip the pot, press or tap on the side of the pot to slip it out. Beautiful roots, 1-gallon pot, no pot mound. It fits right in. It's little with the soil around it. I am doing my fingers to remove the air pockets. More weeds. You can see that weed. It's an opportunity to clean out, get rid of some of those weeds, which is one of our steps for success. I'm going to dig another hole, and then I'll have my 2 plants, and I'll be able to sit on my front porch in the morning or the evening and enjoy the sight of my beautiful flowers and black-eyed Susans. So I've got step number 1 handled. I'm happy with how the garden looks. My sunflowers are in, black-eyed Susans are in, the red salvia or tropical sage is blooming, and I'm starting to get things weeded and thinned out. I'm finding that following my 5 steps is giving me a burst of energy and enthusiasm for getting my garden into shape for the fall. This Equinox gardening strategy is working. Step number 2, plant any perennials now. You want to develop a good root system over winter and bloom in their blooming season, spring through summer. My choice, the purple passion flower vine, known as maypop because it does spread by underground rhizomes, and vines may pop up in your garden bed or in your grass or other places, so they may pop up. I'm going to get this planted, and that will be the completion of step 2. Step number 3 is to thin out any plants that have been growing enthusiastically through the summer. And one of those plants is blanket flower. You can see my large patch here, and many of the flowers have formed seed heads. I will have plenty more blanket flowers, and there are other blanket flowers that are starting. This will be on my list for thinning out. I just discovered another opportunity for thinning out. I have ironweed. I had 2 very large giant ironweeds, both of them knocked over by the hurricane, plants growing all over the place. I will be thinning these out and seeing if I can share with any people. Step number 4 is divide any plants that could benefit from division. Both of these plants are beard's tongue. Both of them probably would do well, and I would divide them in at least in half. That would add to my garden over here so that I would have a larger patch of beard's tongue. They bloom in early spring, and they do have a second round of blooms in late summer. Step number 5 is to weed in preparation of putting down mulch. I'm back at my pollinator garden with my wildflowers, and grass is starting to grow, and there's some weed growing among the flowers. So there's quite an opportunity to thin out unwanted plants as well as weed. Many times the weeds are competing with the plants for both sun and water. The equinox time is celebrated as a time of harvest and a time of transition and new beginnings. A new season, the fall, is starting. For us as gardeners, it's time to enjoy the last hurrah of summer with the blooming plants and the activity of the late season pollinators. And it's time to start implementing the 5 steps for successful gardening. now during this period of transition. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, please give it a thumbs up. If you want further information, here's some videos that you may enjoy watching next. Comment. Friendly comments are always appreciated if you've had experience with some of these plants. And subscribe. Garden Yay! See you soon.